Hey everyone, this is Mrs. Dunnigan, and I wanted to offer a little bit of extra help when it comes to your gums class, Unit 2, and we are going to talk today about direct and indirect objects. Um, so this is referring to this unit right here. It's Unit 2, and then direct and indirect objects is the first lesson in there. So I am going to switch screens right now. And we are going to start off with talking about direct objects. Oftentimes you're going to hear me refer to them as the DO. That would be the abbreviation, direct object. So a direct object is a word or a group of words that names the receiver of the action. A direct object answers the question what or whom. And I'm going to stop at that point, and I understand that with direct objects, their definition is kind of tricky to remember. It sounds a little like blah, 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 blah. So here's what you really need to know about direct objects, okay? The next four things right here are really important. These are things that I would memorize. If you're taking notes, I would write these down. So direct objects are always going to come after an action verb. That's really important, you guys. So we know that we have three types of verbs. We have helping, we have action, and we have linking. So helping can go with action or linking. Okay, so there's really two main types then, action or linking for the main verb. Direct objects and indirect objects can only come after action. They will never come after linking verbs. Okay, so that's the first thing you're going to check for. Do you have an action verb in the sentence? The next thing you need to know is direct objects will never, ever, ever be in prepositional phrases. Okay, that's something like to the store. It starts with your preposition and it ends with your object of the prep. Okay, so I always cross out prepositional phrases because your subject will never be in it, your direct and indirect object will never be in it, predicate nouns and predicate adjectives, verbs, nothing is in prep phrases except, your preposition. It can have adjectives and then it ends with that object of the prep or OP. The next criteria that it has to have is it must be a noun or a pronoun. Okay, so there's only two parts of speech that direct objects can be. And then finally, you're always going to take your verb and you're going to ask what. Okay, the verb plus what. There is a backup question. Occasionally there's no answer to what, and so then you have to ask your verb plus whom. Okay, but we always start with the what question. So let's take a look at this example right here. Jack climbed the beanstalk. The first thing I'm going to do is I am going to look for my action verb. It's climbed, and so I am going to underline that. If I were writing this down on paper, I would draw a vertical split between Jack and climb, separating my subject from my verb. But since I am not, I'm having trouble getting a tool that could do that quickly. Okay, so it would go right there. So what I'm going to do then is I'm going to say Jack climbed what? And my answer then is beanstalk. So beanstalk is my direct object. It is a noun. And it is receiving the action. Let's try another one. The giant's wife protected Jack. Okay, so step one is to find my verb and check that it's action. I do have an action verb, protected. That's something I do. Okay, my vertical split is going to go right after wife. So I'm going to say the wife or the giant's wife protected what? There's no answer to that, so then I'm going to go and do the backup question. The giant's wife protected whom? I do have an answer. It's Jack. So Jack then is my direct object, and it is a proper noun, so it does meet the criteria. And notice that in both of these, they are coming after the action verb. Okay, so direct objects are always going to be after your action verb. We also have something called an indirect object. An indirect object, or an IO, is a word or group of words that tells to whom or what, or for whom or what an action is performed. An indirect object usually comes between a verb and an indirect object. Alright, once again, kind of blah 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 for that first bullet, but here are the things that I would write down and here's what I would memorize. Once again, it must be an action verb to have an indirect object. Okay, it can't be linking. It will never be in a prepositional phrase. It must be a noun or a pronoun. for parts of speech, and it must come in between the verb and the direct object. Okay. The only other thing that you really need to know is you have to find your direct object before you can find the indirect object. So I always tell people, students, to picture a goalpost like in football. So here's kind of my messy goalpost. And so I always think of this left hand part of the goalpost as representing the verb of the sentence. The right hand portion of the goalpost is going to be the direct object. Okay, that's what you find next. And then the indirect object has to come in between. Okay, so it's kind of what you would kick through. It's the football that you're going to kick through. And if you have an indirect object, it always goes through the goalpost, so to speak. It's always going to be in between the verb and the DO. So if we take a look at this example, Jesse told his little cousins the story. The first thing I have already underlined is the verb. It is an action verb. I can draw my vertical split right after Jesse. That's just once again separating my subject side of the sentence from my predicate side. And so I say, Jesse told what? The answer to that question is story. That's what he told. I'm going to highlight that in yellow. That's your direct object. And then if you see, if I draw a line from, here's goalpost number 1, goalpost number 2 for the DO, and if I were to connect my goalpost, it's a little sloppy. Okay, then your IO has to be in between here. So I'm going to say Jesse told the story to who? I only want the noun or pronoun, no adjectives. And so that's going to give me cousins, and I'm going to use green. Cousins is a noun, and so that's my indirect object. There are certain words that are more prone to having an indirect object, and so things like bring, give, hand, lend, make, offer, send, show, teach, tell, write, and ask. So those are just good to know. So once again, just a quick recap. If I'm going to find my direct object, I'm going to say Jack showed his mother the magic beans. Showed is my action verb. Showed what? Beans. That then is my direct object, and I've already listed it right there. And then I say showed, goalpost number 1, the beans, direct object, goalpost number 2, to whom, it must come in between, and that would give us mother because that's the main noun or pronoun. Okay, so mother is my indirect object. So I'm going to actually skip a couple of these and jump down here. Let's try number 4. We will invite students from other classes to our festival. So the first thing I'm going to do is I am going to find my verb or verb phrase. And so will invite is my verb phrase, because what are we doing? We're inviting, and will is a helping verb. So invite is the actual action verb that I'm focused on. If I were to draw my vertical split, it would go right here. We is our simple subject. Then I'm going to make sure that I've crossed out all prepositional phrases, okay? And I do have 2 prep phrases here. The first one is from our classes. From is the preposition, and classes is the OP, or object of the prep. And then to our festival is also a prepositional phrase. To, once again, is a preposition. It starts right here, and it ends with festival, which is an object of the prep, and it's a noun. So I'm crossing these out because direct and indirect objects cannot be in prepositional phrases. So that makes it really easy when I come back here and I say, we will invite what? There's no answer to what. So I'm going to use the backup question. I say, we will invite whom? And that gives me students. So in this sentence, students is a direct object because I always have to find my DO first. An indirect object would have to come in between invite and students, and there are no words in between, so I know for sure then that there is no IO. So I'll just write students equals DO, no IO for number 4. Okay. I'm going to jump around a little bit. How about we do... Let's try number 9. So once again, I am going to find my action verb. I see that it's lent. I can draw my vertical split between my subject and my verb. And just as a quick recap, the drama department is my complete subject. My simple subject there, though, would just be department. If I wanted the complete predicate, it would be everything on this side of the sentence. Lent our class a video camera. Lent is my simple predicate or my verb. It is action, so I can now check for my direct object. I don't have any prepositional phrases to cross out. So I say the drama department lent what? And that would give me camera. So camera is my direct object or my DO. And then I would do my goalposts between lent and camera. So I say the drama department lent the camera to whom? And that gives us class. That is then my indirect object. So quick recap, camera equals the DO, class equals the indirect object. All right, I hope that helps you to have a better understanding of direct and indirect objects. Once again, it's going to boil down to making sure that when you find these, that you always check that you have an action verb, that you cross out any prep phrases, and then I would go ahead and draw your vertical split between your subject and your verb, and then you are going to do the verb plus what. If there's no answer, then it's the verb plus whom. Once you have found your direct object, you can kind of picture your goalpost between your verb and your DO, and then you're going to ask, the verb plus the DO to whom, and that should give you an indirect object if there is one in the sentence. And then the final thing would be that DOs and IOs must be nouns or pronouns. All right, guys, thanks a lot.